Welcome back to day 133 of our chess journey to 1500 ELO on chess.com. Let's just jump on ahead and find our opponent for today. We get Chase Henson 7 from the US, and we have an English on our hands. I think we'll come out here perhaps. I think, honestly, we might as well play a mirrored setup here, asymmetrical English, because as far as I'm aware, it's an easy way of equalizing. So let's come up here to g6 as well. This should hopefully mean we don't have to worry too much about theory here. This can't easily be prevented. I think we'll just come here and accept this might happen. It doesn't though. And now we might just castle. We could come up with a knight here, which I think is quite common. This queen move might be okay as well. But I think we'd come out with a knight first. And if takes, we might even consider taking with the d-pawn. We get castles. I think we'll castle as well. Just playing quickly, as has been our motto as of late. I see if we win today, we get +5 and a loss, and that's as well -11. So let's try not to lose. This diagonal has to be dealt with at some point. I know in some symmetrical English lines here, there's kind of a move here, dealing with the diagonal, is typically not all that bad. We've transposed into an ultra-symmetrical line here, a fianchetto ultra-symmetrical line. Honestly, this move followed by maybe something like this looks okay to me. Alternatively, we could come out here, but well, we could have this as well, in fact. And our queen, well, the queen can get hit there, which is the annoying part. This and this is a move, or rather, queen here, queen here. This is the arrow I'm trying to draw, and this. So I think we'll come up. Well, we could come here, but I would like to cover ourselves. First of all, here. We might play b5 at some point, but now this is our move. I don't think I mind taking here. This can be played, and we could have some pressure added down this way, but it shouldn't be all that bad, I don't think. The pawn takes. Our opponent here is arguing their center is strong, perhaps, although the e file is open. We could come to e6 here, might be an option. We can't take the pawn. I have to admit here, this position is not quite my bread and butter, but we'll try to maneuver our way through. This pawn here is not yet targeted, so I don't think we have to push it yet. This doesn't work because of 3 pieces covering it. We could play this, preparing to play d5 perhaps, but then it might be good. But honestly, this doesn't work, so we could come to b6 instead perhaps, looking to contest this diagonal with our rook defending our bishop. This could be played, and then I guess e6 is probably okay after moving our knight, of course. We get this, and well, it's a really symmetrical setup. As you can see in the name as well here, our opponent is kind of mirroring our idea here of bringing the rook to the b file. Let's bring our bishop out here, I guess. I think our opponent can play this because we don't have this pawn on the c file, which they do, coordinating with the knight. The pawn here is pushed. And now, if we do come here, this becomes a move, and honestly, I don't see a good way of getting our knight back into the game there. If we go here, for instance, this could still be defended. We could come up here to e6 and try and strike at the center, I guess. Don't quite love what I've done to the position here, but it might not be the end of the world either. Don't see a follow-up here. We don't really have any threats there as far as I can see, although this maneuver could be possible, but then this pawn push is annoying. So let's jump up here, I guess. I don't see a concrete way of punishing it, although I just simply do not love our knight's current positioning. So this is played, and the pawns, well, they're doing their part, I guess. e6, if this is played, we get takes, and this pawn becomes annoying, although it could become a weakness as well, as it might become quite difficult to defend there. I don't quite see it being all that difficult to defend though, so honestly, maybe d6 first, blocking the pawn from coming up and giving ourselves a square for the knight, because this knight was awkward, and now we have this, which we didn't otherwise. Our opponent here is pushing pawns left, right, and center. Well, I guess in the center at least, not quite left and right, but you get what I'm saying. Yeah, we don't want to come here. This does nothing. We don't have any threats. This, and we get taken. This, and we lose the knight, so this should be our only move. We could be looking at playing e6 shortly. Only annoying thing here is our d pawn is not defended if we push our e pawn. There is a weak diagonal here, which we could take advantage of at any point if we get our pieces into better positions. Currently, I think our position here just screams for us kind of breaking out of our cage on those 3 files back here. This knight comes up. We could be looking at this move. This is in fact a weak square. And this looks, well, annoying at least. And I don't think I'd like to allow it. But do we have a good response here? We can't quite go here because the queen defends to the knight, although it could have been a good idea otherwise. This is the square in question here. This is a threat. Let's say we go here, then this, and first of all, we could see this, and the pawn might be weak perhaps, I don't quite know. We'd lose the bishop here. But here we don't actually have to. I don't think we have to take. We could go here, but I don't quite love what happens on the diagonal there. Although this might in fact be better than running into this move at a worse timing, I guess. If the queen moves, well, it doesn't. I was going to say we had some ideas of taking here and revealing an attack against the knight with a check. Our opponent here keeps on pushing pawns, which might be good short term, but probably it might just reveal some weaknesses which we could take advantage of as we go. Now we can't easily push this though, so this might just be intended as a blockade. Not quite sure. Could come up here. Honestly, this shouldn't work. I don't think our opponent is able to push all the pawns like this. There's no way that works, right? How about this? That's probably no good. Would like to get this rook into the game. Don't quite see a good way of doing so. We can't strike here either because of, well, this control. So honestly, our pawn mobility here is horrendous. We don't have any pawn pushes as far as I can see. So I might have misevaluated a bit here. Well, let's move our rook over here, and this e-pawn is defended now, and we could probably play with it at some point. This is played, and I think this is how we will take in response. So as not to expose our king along this diagonal in the long term. Some players here might just be playing h4 and looking at an attack immediately. But we get this attack, which, well, it's still an idea, of course. What's our response here, though? First of all, do we have to move? Let's say our opponent takes, and we take here, then we just have the bishop here. I think we would like to push e6, in fact. Our knights are covering each other. We have the bishop. I think it's time to strike. But this, and there is this, I guess. Which honestly could get annoying. So how about we make a quick improving move here? I think this is improving. Just allowing some jumps here, for example. Forcing our opponent to make a move, and honestly I think there should be a lot of moves here our opponent could make, which should make our lives a bit easier at least. But still, our opponent could play a good move here, and this might not be the best move. I just did not quite love what I saw down here. It might have lost a pawn at best. The b pawn is pushed. Does this not blunder a pawn though? Surely this has to be bad, right? There isn't a queen trap here, I'm pretty sure. If we go here, neither knight could hit us. This knight hangs, this pawn is loose. This pawn gets incredibly weak. I think this has to be the move. Pretty sure our opponent finally blundered. And we might get hold of the steering wheel in this game in not too long. 3 pawns undefended by other pawns. A hanging knight. A slightly loose bishop. This is kind of loose as well because of this here. If this knight moves, that is. So what I'm considering now is this, followed by this idea. This knight jumps in, but this has to be a mistake for sure. Because once we take this knight, our opponent might intend to trap our queen. And this does in fact look like a trap. If it wasn't for this move, which wins another knight and comes with a check while threatening to trade queens. Let's take this move and we come here. So I'm pretty confident here our opponent missed this tactical resource of taking this. And this seems like it just blunders just about everything. This hangs. We could go here and the king is forced onto this diagonal. But honestly, I'd like to come here first. This might be forced. And we take the queens off the board as well, and being up a piece as well as a pawn, and our opponent having this weak pawn should give us pretty decent winning chances. And then we could come here as well, threatening the pawn. This is played. We take. This hits the bishop and the pawn. And if our opponent takes here and appears to win a pawn, we get this bishop in return. So honestly, it just seems as though most of the stuff here should win us the game, tactically at least. This, and a funny thing here is, let's say this is played, I think this is checkmate. Yeah, I think we'll come up with a knight here. Should be quite okay. Most likely the best move here is dropping back along this diagonal. But still, there we can pick up this pawn. A move like this could be played, but it would still be okay for us. Here we have to make a decision. Do we open up our rook here and slightly compromise our pawn structure, or do we get our bishop back safely? This leaves our b-pawn exposed. However, I think the activity there is going to be worth it. So we'll come up here. Even if it's not worth it, we still have so much material. This should be a convincingly decent position. Something like this, or this even. Yeah, I think this move. I wanted to keep the e5 square open for our bishop, but honestly I just think this configuration here looks good, and if our bishop is targeted, well, no, honestly we can't take here though, We cannot take there, so maybe not. How about coming up here, getting in, and then dropping back and getting our other rook into the game like this? I think that's probably a better idea. So let's opt for this instead. Our bishop, the bishop here covers c8 in case our opponent wants to contest this file. We have pressure down here. This bishop should hold our stuff together like glue. This is played. I guess we'll be coming back. Most likely. Considering other moves here, because we do still have a lot of time to convert this, but let's not get too fancy. This should do the deal. Something like this. And at the very best, or very least I mean, we should be able to force some material off the board here. If we get one pair of rooks off, this conversion should be a whole lot easier. If we get this, I think we're just decisively winning. Well, we are already decisively winning, but even more so, I guess. So that's quite promising. Don't quite know what this move does. I think we'll come here, and I don't see a good way of defending the second rank. This, and we have this. If the bishop moves, we have, well, we could take the h2 pawn at the very least. Now our opponent's rooks have no coordination, so I at least can't really perceive any threats. Our opponent here might have intended to play this, to try and break through here with the rooks. Doesn't quite work though. Let's take this pawn. This is forced. We don't quite have this, but we could take here, I guess, and expose the king entirely. Yeah, pretty sure this is good. And then if... yeah, I guess if a rook comes down here or here, we could just drop back with the bishop and still be quite happy. So let's take... we're up 6 points of material. We'll just have to trade off some pieces here, and any endgame should favor us to such a degree it should not even be funny. A maneuver here I'm noticing is we might have this kind of a remaneuver with our bishop. This isn't a threat. I think we'll come here, activating our bishop, because this pawn isn't doing a whole lot either way. Oh, there is this threat now with a revealed attack here. So let's maybe dodge that idea. Hit this rook, for example. Yeah, this looks good. Takes. If takes here, we have this maybe. The king is in jail, and I just blundered a piece. It's never too late. How did I miss this? I don't quite know. That's quite something. I guess we'll have to come up with a king now to defend both of our pawns. So the game is much more even now. So let's turn it up here and try and win the game. It's not as though we were not already, though. I guess I just had a brief lapse in judgment. No, this isn't hanging, and this is not hanging either. Would like to move this rook because it's slightly loose. Let's say if this rook has to leave this file, then this is hanging. Maybe something like this, and getting the other rook down here, for example, just cutting the board off. We're down 8 minutes. Nothing new there. This rook moves. You know what? Let's hit the bishop. The only response should be this move. If this is played, we have this, I guess. And our bishop gets active there, which looks quite promising. This is played, in fact. We will come down here, and this sets up a checkmate threat with this move. This isn't hanging because of our f-pawn. If this is played, we take. And we're still up 3 pawns. Are we? Yeah, I guess we are. Yeah, because our opponent doesn't have pawns here. I thought this was our only pawn, our d-pawn, for a second, but it's not. This is a checkmate in 1 because of this rook covering this. And as we go here together with our bishop, we have a checkmate. So thanks for the game to our opponent. I do see we had a mistake, apparently not a blunder. I do think we had a blunder. This might just be misinterpreted in some way, because losing 1 bishop definitely was a blunder. Yeah, you're a loser, says our opponent. Yeah, it's not as though every player is going to be all that nice in the chat, which is one of the reasons I definitely don't mind covering the chat. Let's jump ahead into the game review, guys. We played with 87.1 today, and our opponent played with 73.4. We did have 2 mistakes, in fact, and 3 inaccuracies, but apart from those, we had a pretty decent game. Our opponent had some mistakes as well. We'll go through both of them, I guess, and have a look at how we should have played and how we could have played differently as well. I'm slightly accustomed with ideas in the English. I don't quite know the best lines, but I know at least some ideas because it's essentially a Sicilian in some ways. And also because I did briefly look at it a couple of months ago because I wanted to play it as white. But still, we did find ourselves in trouble here after this move, in which case this would have become quite bad. Let's say we went here, for instance, then this. Apparently it's not this move. I guess we just have a bad position here because we cannot deal with this diagonal here. So how about we go here? If this is played, why is this not good? Shutting down this pawn movement and this diagonal. For some reason this is +2 and I cannot quite tell why. I guess maybe because our development plans here got interrupted. Our rook doesn't want to be on b7, it would have liked to be back here maybe, and our bishop up here, and our knight is kind of cut off on the edge of the board. So it's not quite an advantage in terms of material or in terms of pawn structure. It's just the computer finding a way here of forcing our pieces onto bad squares. Well, it's not played, still this wasn't the best, and we found ourselves in a bit of trouble for a while. Should have apparently went here, which I guess says something about our position, because if the best move is giving up a pawn for free, then it's a sign it's not a good position. Apparently this is the move, which I guess I did realize afterwards because of this pawn hanging. Didn't quite deal with it here either. Didn't see it yet, to be honest. Considered moves like this though. Either move. Didn't settle on a knight move and moved the rook instead. This, our opponent did not spot this once again, and we covered the move. This was our opponent's blunder, and from this point on I don't think we ever really had any chances of losing, at least none that were obvious, and we got into an endgame, which is my preferred kind of position. All good moves. It's been a while here where we played how many best moves in a row. Let's count. So this was a mistake, but then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. 11 best moves in a row. I definitely don't mind. Although they were more obvious, it still does show we're learning something while playing chess. Because we do get the ideas of the engine, which is quite optimistic to see. This was a mistake, should have just went back. Don't quite know why I didn't. Still, our position is just crushing, and we got a mate in 1 here. So, well, that's definitely a decent result today, and we're back up to 1469 ELO. So thanks to our opponent Chase Henson7 from the US for a nice game today. Thank you for watching to the end of the video. This has been our game for today. Hope you have a fantastic rest of your day, and I hope to see you all tomorrow. Bye bye.